Hello. I'm so excited as we are entering April in about a few weeks. It will be 10 years that I did my first Peace and Happiness workshop. The interesting thing about that is that I wasn't supposed to host that workshop. I was just going to be the MC. I had sold all the event tickets. I had used the money to get the venue and the food that was going to be provided in the venue. And then the person that was supposed to lead the workshop, I think their thing was called Moving Mountains or something, last minute tells me they have a family emergency. They will not be able to attend. And I'm like, what do I do? I don't have the money to refund to people anymore. And she says, you can do it. And I was like, what do you mean? And what was so challenging about that time, I was actually couch surfing with my kids. So can you imagine being a speaker, having some sense of authority when I'm couch surfing with my teenage son and my little girl. And I had no other option to either refund the money, which I didn't have, or put on a workshop. And so a workshop I did. And I decided to call Peace and Happiness because even though I was going through such a crazy time in my life, at the time I had just come over really healing SA in such a deep way that I had found peace and happiness. And I was like, I can teach people independent that I don't even have a roof over my head. My kids are so happy and peaceful. I can still remember the day that we moved everything into storage and they're over here blasting sandstorm. And I'm in the back seat as my son is driving us to our hotel that we're going to stay for that night. And just seeing them so carefree. And they've always said, Mom, home isn't a place. Home is wherever we are. It's where the people that you love are. And so I felt very confident to teach peace about peace and happiness because I knew that our peace and our happiness, we had mastered something that surpassed it being in a title, in a material thing, in a bank account, in how others see us, but it was rooted in our being. And so, fast forward 10 years later, I wrote this memoir and I'm going to read it. I'm going to read the introduction today and then I'll do another video with the chapter 1. It's a very short read. But with that being said, it is for any type of trauma that you've ever experienced, whether it's extreme poverty, mother wound, father wound, whether it's abandonment, whether it's a sense of not being enough, rejection. In this case, the book is talking about my domestic violence, but it truly can be applied to whatever has traumatized or caused you extreme pain. And I think you'll find a lot of value, whatever the case may be. And what's interesting about this domestic violence is after taking 3 weeks off to process, literally as I was writing it, I was crying and releasing so much of the pain that I didn't even know was there because 'cause I've been so happy for so long. I always thought that the SA was a big thing for me to conquer, which I did from, like, 2010 to 2015, and then after that, everything just seemed rosy until domestic violence showed up, and, it kind of, like, came from left field to the extent that I've been through what they call TBI. And at first, the doctors thought it was from a concussion I suffered in 2020 with delayed effects that I never got treated and now it was surfacing. But when they looked further, they said, this is equally emotional trauma to your brain. And it was so powerful. And I've been on a journey since I wrote this book till finally I'm 2 weeks clear of headaches and migraines and dizziness and sleeping. Like, I could just work for an hour or 2, and then I'd have to sleep for hours, and so I'm definitely finally, like, deeply healed, and I say that, like, with a little bit of hesitance because I don't like to if you know me and my work, we are never healed. You're always healing at some level. It just never looks the same, and it doesn't have to be as intense as it was in previous times, right? And so anyways, there's so much to say with that, and I don't wanna get sidetrack because these videos are really about like getting this information to you. And I know some of you are not readers, so I'm going to read to you. And so I'm going to put on my glasses because I need glasses to read. My daughter, freaking B, is why don't you get a little chain and then this way you can just put them on? And I'm just like, I refuse, but here we go. Okay, so I'm going to read the introduction, and it says, according to the Heart Math Institute, the heart's electrical field is about 60 times greater in amplitude than the electrical activity generated by the brain. 60 times greater. This field, measured using an electrocardiogram, ECG, can be detected anywhere on the body's surface. Furthermore, the magnetic field produced by the heart is more than 100 times stronger than the field generated by the brain. Guys, that is huge. Imagine if you have both of those in coherency, game over. Okay, back to the book. It can be detected up to 3 feet away from the body in all directions using the squid base magnetometers. In summation, it means we can be aware and intellectually knowing something, yet until it rings true at the heart level, we most likely won't integrate it as an embodiment of lived truth. It won't be our experience. It can be a conceptual, intellectual understanding, but it will not be a lived truth. It will not be our experience until we feel it at a heart level. It is no wonder that most people never truly and deeply heal. My hesitation. As we often try to recover by intellectualizing our understanding of things rather than dealing with feeling and healing. I'm going to read that again. It is no wonder that most people never truly and deeply heal, as we often try to recover by intellectualizing, talking it out, our understanding of things rather than dealing with the feeling and healing. That's where I had that hesitation because I didn't even know that domestic violence was something I needed to go deep and heal. I wasn't hit. It happened to my mom, but it happens to anyone witnessing it. Okay, next. As we embark on this true life story of domestic violence, it is my intention that we can understand why memories and pain cut so deep, especially when it is one of your first traumas that you have lived from the heart. Often, let me read it and I'll explain it after. Okay. When it is one of your first traumas that you have lived from the heart, traumas, events, and experiences that follow after our initial deep rooted pain experience tend to be more intellectualized. We have a little bit of callous and painstaking from the ideology that we shouldn't have gone through such an event. At some level, we have already walled up our heart from our initial pain point memory. Heart wounds stay embedded at levels that surpass time. Research tends to state that a child in a continuous domestic violence environment can be similar to the PTSD of a veteran warrior. Makes sense when we research the studies that show so many adverse effects in children from domestic abuse or otherwise. Law enforcement is consistently advised to proceed with domestic violence calls with extreme caution, as those calls are considered one of the most dangerous. Understandably so, as domestic violence is something felt at a heart level versus situations we create more intellectually. Decades after having survived such circumstances, Children raised in domestic violence live out the effects, unbeknownst to them, in all areas of their psyche, lives, and their being. One of the hardest is how much their self esteem and confidence are crushed. Even when they go on to live everyday lives, the effects, though dormant, are ever so powerful, directing their lives from the unconscious. This book brings light to the words of psychologist Carl Jung that until we make the unconscious conscious, it will direct our lives and we will call it destiny. Domestic violence and other abusive experiences leave us having to acquire faith in ourselves or work towards any level of greatness to erase the erroneous self beliefs that we took on from the witnessing or experiencing of having loved ones or ourselves being beaten or being abused. Imagine us simply believing in ourselves. What a concept. To start this life on high instead of the early setup where we live from our early beginnings to prove ourselves worthy, valuable, or lovable, or for some, on the defensive against the threats to survive. Confidence and self belief are often linked as a segue to self mastery. Frequently, we think or believe that confidence is something we must acquire or develop. Yet, as I have worked with thousands, I have come to learn that more often than not, the obstruction is some internal narrative we unconsciously created at a very, very young age. Most individuals could achieve great success if, instead of acquiring skills or mindsets, they simply release the negative or limiting states of being they learned as children. I probably could add here and in our formative teenage years. Removing the negative inner dialogue and clearing out negative thoughts from the image and identity would place us on the road to being the full expression of the greatness locked up within us all. I wrote, journaled, and uncovered in real time the thought process and experience of healing what I had, unbeknownst to me, ruling over all of my life, my relationships, and being. If even one person gets an insight, a nugget, an understanding of how their past pains are burying their potential and possibilities, they just might be set free, as I have been set free, then this will have been worth it. The time dedicated to writing this book will have been worth it. We are all capable of creating lives we love, yet we must first clear the clutter of the past, ground ourselves in the present, yet and forge a path to freedom. This book is my hope to bring such freedom to anyone who picks it up and reads it or listens to it as I am reading it for you here. From my heart to yours, I send power and strength to conquer thyself. To thy own self be true. So that is just the intro as to why I felt that sharing that experience could be something that could be very powerful, as we light ourselves on and we share it, it gives people sometimes insights to their own understanding of this thing. But with that being said, you guys, I just really look forward to reading this book. On the next video, I'll start with chapter 1. And again, I think it will bring insights that will greatly empower you. And how do I stop? See how much I love you guys? I'm figuring this whole tech things as we talk. Oh, there we go. End stream.